Welcome to my channel and thanks for watching. My gentle dad. Just a little mom, can hear my voice trembled slightly, weak like the sound of wind blowing through the crack of the door. My throat tightened, each word coming out with difficulty, as if I was trying to hold back something that was about to burst. My heart was pounding in my chest, as if it was about to burst. My hands unconsciously tightened around the blanket. My breathing was no longer even ragged, intermittent, every small sound. In the quiet room made my heart skip a beat, afraid that the secret would be exposed to the light. Hello, everyone. I'm Maya. Today I want to share my story. A tale I once believed I would keep buried forever, never to speak of again. The heartbreaking truth is that I am the one at fault, and this narrative feels so far-fetched, like something out of movie. Yet it unfolded in my real life. No matter how much I wish to erase those memories, they remain etched in my mind, haunting me daily. I fear I will never be able to rectify my mistakes or find peace with the person I deeply hurt. The wounds I caused linger on not only emotional but also the trust that was lost. No matter how hard I tried, I could not erase what I had done. I am a pretty girl living with my parents in the small town of Caramel by the Sea, California. Peaceful and poetic place. My father, Alexis, the owner of a famous seafood restaurant in the area, he always takes good care of his body and likes to go to the gym. So, even though he is nearly 50 years old, his body is still toned strong and looks much younger than his real age. He is strong, decisive, but always gentle with me. My mother, Sarah, literature teacher at the high school near our house, she embodies gentleness and delicacy with a particular passion for classical literature. Each night she finds solace by the window, immersed in the pages of her books under the warm glow of light, always ready to share wisdom and affection. My mother has been my guiding star, teaching me the essence of living sincerely and emotionally from my childhood to adulthood. I have been enveloped in the unwavering love of both my parents, who have poured their hearts into nurturing and protecting me. I remember the joy of my father's return from work, a moment that always felt like home. I would dash to him, throwing myself into his embrace, my small arms encircling his neck as I hugged him tightly. My father was always the epitome of safety and security. In his arms, everything felt right. I didn't overthink it. I simply felt cherished and protected. I was also a girl with a penchant for fresh, beautiful things, often selecting the most stunning dresses for myself each time I would rush to my parents, twirl around a few times and eagerly await their compliments, knowing they adored me, smiled, their eyes brimming with pride. Those simple compliments made me feel like the happiest girl in the world after every dinner when the whole family gathered. Around the TV screen, I had a habit of sitting on my father's lap. He often held me in his arms. Those hugs were gentle and warm. I grew up with that pampering to the point that it became a hard habit to break. Even as I matured, I still clung to the habit of sitting on my father's lap as if I were still a little girl in need of love in his safe embrace. That habit felt like a cherished bond, a small joy I never wished to relinquish yet. Lately, each time I settled onto my father's lap or rushed to envelop him in a hug, the sensation had shifted. There was an oddity in his response that I couldn't ignore. He no longer welcomed my hugs with the same ease. Instead, there was a pause, and sometimes his arms would tighten just a bit more than before. The way he gazed at me had transformed, too, lacking the gentle warmth that once defined father's love in moments of affection towards his child. I often sensed a perplexity in his gaze, as if he were concealing something beyond my comprehension. During these instances, my heart races, a whisper of intuition suggesting that something is amiss, yet I hesitate to accept it. Perhaps I am overthinking, attributing weight to a fleeting sensation. Nonetheless, this unease lingers, a reminder that our relationship has shifted from its former simplicity. My father, despite his age, remains dedicated to exercise, embodying strength and style. His physique reminds me of his youth. He embodies not but also a remarkable blend of strength and charm that has always captivated me. Whenever I gaze at my father, I can't help but acknowledge his enduring handsomeness, characterized by broad shoulders and a fit physique. Each time he passes by, a warm envelopes me a peculiar sensation that eludes precise definition. Perhaps it's the confidence he radiates, or the robust presence that harkens back to my childhood when he was my entire universe. Yet recently that sentiment has shifted slightly. It's not just that there was a deep, indescribable feeling I experienced as I looked at my father longer than usual. Whenever I was near him, something stirred within me that felt different. One day, after coming home from school, I found him already, settled on the sofa watching TV. His eyes fixed on the screen as I walked in. I noticed him sitting there, peaceful and familiar, and despite having grown up, I felt a sense of comfort in that moment rushing to him. I felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity as I leaped onto his lap, just like I used to as a child. Without hesitation, Dad wrapped his arms around me, just as he always had. Yet this time, there was an undeniable shift in the air between us, making me feel a sense of discomfort that I couldn't shake off. I attempted to dismiss it, convincing myself it was merely a figment of my imagination. But it wasn't just a passing sensation. I became aware of something pressing against me. As I sat there initially, I tried to overlook it. I reassured myself that it was merely the awkward position I found myself in, or perhaps something too away in his pocket. Yet as time passed, an undeniable awareness settled in. Intensifying with each heartbeat, the air grew thick and oppressive, transforming the once comforting proximity into a source of discomfort. I remained motionless, striving to maintain my composure, but a flurry of unasked questions stirred within me. My father's eyes held a shyness that added to the tension in the room, silent like mine. We both remained quiet, sitting in the heavy atmosphere until Mom unexpectedly entered. Shattering the tension, I felt an urge to rise. Yet my legs felt anchored, immobilized. Dad remained silent, his gaze fixed on me, and in his eyes, the familiar warmth of the past had vanished. Then the door creaked open, and my mother stepped in. Disrupting the oppressive silence, we both averted our eyes, and I hastily stood up, attempting to maintain a facade, as much as I tried to maintain. A sense of normally an unsettling feeling lingered, pressing down on my heart, like a weight that seemed impossible to lift. Everything appeared ordinary on the surface, yet I could sense the shift beneath it all. My dad began to show a newfound interest in my life, asking about my day, and noticing the small details he had overlooked before he started surprising me with new clothes and gifts I hadn't requested initially. These gestures left me bewildered. But over time, I came to understand that this attention felt different from the love I had always known. It was a day that marked a profound shift in the relationship between my father and me, a moment etched in my memory forever. My mother had left for a business trip, a consequence of the school's proposal, leaving just my father and me in the house. I returned home from school, and what awaited me was entirely unforeseen. On the dining table, my father had arranged lavish dinner. The ambience in the house transformed, taking on as lightly romantic quality as the candlelight danced, and the aroma of the food filled the air. The aroma was delightful, and 2 bottles of red wine sat invitingly on the table. My surprise was evident. My eyes widened as I glanced at my father. Laughter escaping me. "Why are you so thoughtful today?" I wondered, still believing it was merely a happy coincidence. A pleasant surprise without a hint of anything more profound. With his familiar smile, my father mentioned he had good news to share, something successful he wished to celebrate. I felt a surge of happiness and chose not to probe further, simply wanting to savor this dinner with my family father. We gathered at the table, sharing food and drank the wine, flowing smoothly in our glasses. The soft candlelight cast a warm glow, creating an atmosphere more intimate than ever. In that moment, everything felt right to normal. Too familiar, yet from this closeness a deeper meaning began to emerge, a feeling I struggled to articulate. We dined and shared confidences, reminiscing about my child, who always clung to my father. Sweet memories and little jokes filled the air, each one cherished. We both laughed, the tension from earlier dissipating like mist in the sun. Laughter filled the warm room, creating an atmosphere that felt more intimate than ever. After finishing 2 bottles of wine, I could feel the effect taking hold, my mind swirling as the alcohol dulled my senses. We sat closer together, and I couldn't tell if it was the wine or something deeper. But suddenly a question slipped from my lips, one I never imagined I would ask. "Do you like me?" I inquired, my voice soft, yet no longer innocent. Father. That question was not the innocent question of a child, but carried a deeper meaning, as if I was asking from my completely different perspective. A perspective that my sober mind would never allow me to say. My father was silent for a moment. Then he turned to look at me, his eyes deep and thoughtful, as if he was examining something inside me. Then he answered, his voice. War. Yes, just one word. But it was heavy and full of hidden meaning. We both looked at each other. In that moment, the space seemed to freeze between us. It was no longer the bond between father and daughter, yet transcending any connection I had previously experienced. In that instant, I was unsure of what compelled me. Perhaps it was the alcohol or the flood of emotions that had long been buried. Without a word, I reached out and embraced my father's neck. A peculiar sensation coursed through me, but I pressed on, no longer overthinking. All I understood was that I was unable to restrain myself. My father hesitated briefly, but soon he reciprocated. My embrace, his arms encircling my waist, holding me tighter. The space that once separated us vanished. As our gazes locked in a lingering embrace of understanding, words fell away, leaving only the silent exchange of our innermost thoughts. Our lips met, tentative at first, as if we were unearthing a long-lost affection. Yet in mere moments, that uncertainty melted into a powerful surge of emotion. Our embraces tightened, not merely to draw nearer, but to capture this fleeting instant, to etch it into memory. My heart raced, echoing the intensity of the moment as I rested against my father's chest. The warmth of his body enveloped me, causing the world around us to fade away. He began to softly trace his fingers along my back, exploring every contour, every breath. What started as gentle tenderness slowly transformed into a lingering caress, as if he were unable to suppress the growing longing within him. His fingers glided over my skin, both cautious and eager, as if he sought to uncover every hidden detail without overlooking a single moment. Each touch, each movement sent shivers through me, as if my body instinctively responded to his every gesture with a gentle lift. My father cradled me in his arms, but firmly. His strong arms held me tightly, as if he didn't want to let go. I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling the rhythm of our rapid breaths. He walked without. He set action, leading me into the room where darkness enveloped us, save for the dim light filtering in from outside. In that moment, we cast aside all concerns, time-space, focusing solely on one another, as if the world had come to a standstill. All thoughts faded away, leaving behind an intense longing, a profound connection that words could never capture. My father placed me on the bed, and our lips found each other once more, merging in sweet yet fervent kisses, as if separation was impossible. I could sense his warm breath mingling with the quickened rhythm of my heart. His hands moved deliberately, unbuttoning my shirt with each gentle touch. With every button undone, the sensation of exposure transcended mere nudity. It was a profound vulnerability we both laid bare. That feeling tightened my chest. Yet simultaneously, all reservations began to fade that night. We no longer held back anything back. All barriers, all reservations were broken, as if the world was left with only the two of us. Every gesture, every touch, had a deeper meaning, as if wanting to engrave each other's image into our minds and bodies. We gave each other everything, not just physical intimacy, but also the fusion of emotions of secret desires that had been suppressed for so long that night. Both of us understood that all boundaries had been erased, and there was nothing but each other's absolute presence in that moment. The next day, when my mother, upon returning home, everything appeared to be back to normal. My father and I interacted as usual, both smiling and chatting as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred the night before. We had breakfast together, discussing mundane topics like any typical family. Yet beneath the surface, I was aware that we both understood the weight of what had transpired. Despite our outward composure, profound silence lingered between my father and me. Every glance and gesture held a deeper significance. It felt as though we were entwined in a clandestine affair, a secret that lingered in the shadows. Despite our awareness of its wrongness, our encounters grew more secretive and rushed, heightening the tension between guilt and longing. We understood the implications of our actions, yet neither of us was willing to put an end to it. Each fleeting touch, every lingering glance spoke volumes, suggesting a continuation without the need for spoken commitments. Then, one fateful night, while my mother lay in a deep slumber, my father slipped into my room, silent as a whisper, while I remained blissfully unaware of his presence beside me, next to me. His arms wrapped around me, the strange warmth enveloping my body startled me awake. I turned my head slightly and found his familiar face close by. A moment of surprise passed, but then my lips curved into a gentle smile as I embraced my father. In that instant, I forgot everything around us, leaving only him and me. "Gently, Dad, be careful. Mom won't hear," I whispered, my voice trembling like the cold wind seeping through the crack in the door. Each word felt difficult to utter, as if I were trying to hold back something deep within. Something deep within me felt on the verge of exploding. My throat constricted, yet my heart raced wildly in my chest. My hands gripped the blanket tightly, attempting to quell the tremors coursing through me. Each breath came out in ragged gasps, as if an unseen anxiety was constraining my air. The room enveloped us in an eerie silence, where even the faintest sound or movement sent my heart into a frenzy, terrified that this secret, our daring love, would be laid bare for all to see, unraveling everything we fought to keep hidden. The dread of being discovered looming over us slowly transformed into anal-consuming fixation. Yet I found myself unable to refuse whenever Dad arrived. It dawned on me that I was ensnared in this connection, fully aware of its inevitable downfall. Then the day I had dreaded finally arrived. My mother called to inform me that something had arisen, preventing her from coming home. As scheduled, she would only return the following morning. A fleeting sense of relief washed over Dad and me as we entertained the thought of an uninterrupted evening. We dismissed our concerns, believing we still had ample time. Until on the following morning, my mother unexpectedly returned, catching us off guard in our negligence. We failed to notice her entrance. She stood before the scene silent, and I understood that everything had unraveled. The world felt as though it was crumbling around her, and in that instant all was lost. I felt a weight in my chest, unable to utter a word, while my father remained frozen, at a loss for words. The air in the house was thick with heaviness and tension, allowing no space for understanding or compassion after my mother had seen the chilling reality settled in as she walked away. Without a word, leaving the house steeped in an eerie stillness, the air between my father and me thickened with an uncomfortable tension. Laden with unspoken words and a profound sense of shame, we found ourselves at a loss, unsure of how to navigate. The aftermath of revealed truths days dragged on an oppressive quiet. My mother absent from our lives, ultimately choosing to file for divorce. The marriage I had believed to be unshakable crumbled, leaving the house devoid of warmth and filled with an unsettling emptiness that consumed me. Confronting the remnants of a once joyful family, I found myself engulfed in turmoil, uncertain of the path ahead, torn between my father and mother. I felt paralyzed by indecision. The man who had been my pillar of strength had transformed into the catalyst of my despair, while my mother, who had nurtured me with unwavering love, now seem distant, burdened by an unbeatable sorrow, it dawned on me that my misguided emotions and vulnerabilities had precipitated irreversible consequences. The fabric of my family lay in tatters, a result of choices I never imagined could lead to such devastation. Not only impacted my mother, but also me and my father, leading us to lose love and trust in one another. Eventually, I realized that all boundaries and family relationships must be honored once they are violated. There is no return love, no matter how profound, cannot mend such grave error. Now I find myself at a crossroads in my life, uncertain of where to go or whom to turn to. I'm unsure if I can confront my father or mother, and I question whether they still have a place for me in their lives. The family I once knew is now merely a haunting recollection. My future remains shrouded in uncertainty. I am acutely aware that I must confront the repercussions of my actions and learn to coexist with this enduring anguish. I anticipate that many will pass judgment upon hearing my tale, labeling my deeds as unforgivable. But I am prepared for that. I recognize that perspectives vary, and I am willing to embrace the scrutiny. Ultimately, what matters most is that I have summoned the courage to confront my reality and acknowledge the pain and fallout of my missteps. My final piece of advice for those who are following this narrative is to remain vigilant and uphold boundaries in every relationship, particularly within the family. At times, love and intimacy can obscure our judgment, resulting in poor choices we never imagined we would make. Keep in mind that every action carries consequences, and some mistakes are irreparable, leaving behind lasting pain and damage. Do not allow fleeting emotions to cloud your judgment, and resist the temptation to follow paths that may lead to lifelong regret. Honor the importance of boundaries. Safeguard love and trust within the family. For once shattered, there is no returning. At times, we are granted but a single opportunity to cherish what truly matters, and losing it can bring the deepest sorrow. I appreciate everyone for taking the time to hear my story. If you found it meaningful, please show your support by liking and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss the upcoming tales. Thank you, and until next time.